Could an unexpected U20 player be called in last minute by Mauricio Pochettino for the 2026 World Cup? That is the $1 million question, which honestly, nowadays we should change it to $10 million question or something like that, right? Because when they came up with that term, the $1 million question, $1 million was worth a lot more than it is these days. Like back then, $1 million could get you a mansion. Nowadays, if you have $1 million, you might be able to, I don't know, buy like a Pokemon card. It's true. It's true. But back to what we were talking about. Who even is this U20 American player that many people were talking about like 7 to 10 days ago? It's not Noah Kai Banks because he wouldn't really be an unexpected call-up. It's also not Cavan Sullivan. It's Xavier Gozo from RSL in Major League Soccer. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And a few days ago, I saw many takes and requests for Pochettino to give Xavier Gozo an opportunity in the 2026 World Cup. And I want to dive into that. And I want to go through the case for bringing in Xavier Gozo and the case against his inclusion. And towards the end of this video, I'll give you my take on whether or not this is realistic and if I would do it. Am I for him being brought into the World Cup? Yes or no? I'm just going to say one thing. As I was digging into it throughout this video, studying the player more and more, looking into our depth chart, it's not that crazy of a take, okay? And we've seen crazier things happen in World Cup rosters. But let me know in the comments section down below before you even drop a like in this video, if there was one, just one, undeserving U20 player that you could bring to this World Cup, American of course, who would it be? Or would you even bring one, right? Maybe you'll say, I wouldn't do so. Is it Cavan Sullivan, Mehmeti from the New York Red Bulls, Mathis Albert from Borussia Dortmund? Who would it be? Now make sure to drop a like in this video if you haven't already. Let's roll the intro and start the episode. Okay, so before we even start, in case you're not familiar with this name, Xavier Gozo is a 19-year-old forward that plays for RSL in Major League Soccer. He can also play very well as a wingback, okay? He can play as a winger, he can play as a wingback, and he has a ton of potential. Even Aston Villa has been reported to be interested in the American prospect. Like, listen, in terms of his current ability, I'm not so sure yet. But in terms of his potential, the ceiling is high. He's off to a hot start this season in Major League Soccer, and due to that and his player profile that we're going to talk about very soon, there have been takes and calls from people to bring him to the World Cup. We had Herc Gomez make a case for Xavier Gozo. We're going to go through that very soon, as I do not want to take Herc out of context because he didn't say we should bring Xavier Gozo, but he explained the case for him. We're going to go through that very soon. But Marcus Chai, who does a great job covering youth prospects, did say that he would bring Xavier Gozo over Brendan Aronson. And I actually understood his point, and I'm going to talk about that very soon. Mentioning him doesn't mean I'm taking a jab or a hit on him. There are certain things that Marcus Chai said that I actually agree with. It's not really that crazy of a take. My point here was that I wanted to show that reliable people that have good takes and cover this sport have talked about it. So this is not a random topic. We also saw a FootMob article saying that Xavier Gozo is under Mauricio Pochettino's radar. So there have been a lot of reliable people with a good reputation talking about it. And even Stu Holden talked about it as well on X. But Stu Holden, to me, I don't really take him seriously, so in that case, it doesn't matter. If anything, it might even hurt Xavier Gozo's odds of going to the World Cup. Because Stu Holden agreeing with you or rating you is essentially the same thing as like a British man agreeing with your soccer takes. If you're having a soccer debate and a guy from England agrees with you, you lost that debate. Even if he's not from England, even if he's from like Wales, the country. Okay, so now let's go through the case that is for the inclusion of Xavier Gozo. After that, we're going to go through the case that is against it. Now that we're going to go through the case for Xavier Gozo being in the World Cup, I want to mainly highlight and bring up the takes from Marcus Chai, a youth soccer expert, and Hercules Gomez. Okay, the reason I want to do that is because they had some good takes or interesting takes on this, and I'm just going to pretty much tell you what they said instead of me yapping what they said with my own words. Okay, so first let's go through what Marcus Chai had to say on X. Okay, the first thing he tweeted was, I would bring Xavier Gozo over Brenden Aaronson to the World Cup. Gozo has a greater chance of giving you some magic late in the game when you need a goal. And you give one of the most promising prospects an incredible experience. On top of that, on the replies, he added, yeah, I do not know if Pochettino will do it either. In this case, he's referring to bringing Xavier Gozo. But crazier selections have happened, which honestly is true. Gozo brings a 1v1 skill set that this team desperately lacks. And obviously, he got a lot of hate for it, which is pretty normal on X. Like, sometimes you can say the sky is blue on X and people will hate on you for it. So it's perfectly normal. There are a few things there that I disagree with. Like, for example, bringing him over Brenden Aaronson. Why not bring him over Roldan or Sebastian Berhalter, right? But yeah, Xavier Gozo does bring a 1v1 ability. He does bring something different that we do lack. All of that is true. And after that, when Herculez Gomez had a take, Marcus Chai also added a bit more context to his take. And he said this while quote tweeting Herc Gomez. He said, I got a lot of heat for this idea of bringing Xavier Gozo to the World Cup. What some people seem to have a hard time with is viewing certain players as role-specific options on the edge of the roster rather than starters. So let me summarize his case for Xavier Gozo being in the World Cup. Okay, he said that he's more unpredictable in 1v1 situations, and in the right day, he can pull some magic and change the outcome of the game in our favor. Or to the very least, he has more of a chance of doing that than a player like Brenden Aaronson. The other thing he said was that he has a great 1v1, something that we lack, which honestly it is true, and we would be giving a promising young player great experience, and that I definitely agree with as well. Marcus Chai also added that he would be an edge roster player, which means he would be player maybe like 25 or 26 in the roster, and he probably wouldn't really get many minutes. He would have a very specific role for very specific situations. So that's the case for it, for his inclusion. Now let's look at what Herc Gomez had to say. And keep in mind that Herc was not saying that we should bring in Xavier Gozo. He was saying that if we were to bring one U20 prospect, him, Herculez Gomez, would bring Xavier Gozo in that specific scenario. So let's roll the clip of what Herc had to say.
If there is a position that is lacking right now on the U.S. men's national team, I think it's fair to say it's the winger position, where maybe your only true winger is Timothy Weah. So if I'm looking for a player that gives me a different profile, that is exciting, can make a name for himself, I would say Xavier Gozo. He's the only player we could think of that fits the profile with that type of confidence. The kid has size, speed, and dribbling ability, 1v1 creation, space for himself and others that I think many in this player pool do not have. I think it kind of sets him apart. Now, I'm not saying the kid goes to the World Cup and is going to be somebody, but crazier things have happened.
Okay, so Herc's case for Xavier Gozo was 1, that we lack wingers. 2, we lack players with Xavier Gozo's player profile, which honestly, both of those are true. And not in that specific clip, but throughout the episode that I watched, the entire episode that Herc had with Sebastian Salazar, he also made the same case as Marcus Chai, that you would be giving a very promising player that the U.S. men's national team has, in this case, a great experience. And we have seen many countries do that in the past. And I think Herc in the episode even reminded everyone that Ronaldo R9, the phenomenon, he was in the 1994 World Cup on the bench for Brazil. I don't think he played at all. Maybe he might have played a minute here and there, but he was there for experience. And mind you, back then, they would bring 23-man rosters. Now we're bringing 26. So you could have one spot for that young, promising player that you want to just give him experience. So in the future, you collect the dividends. And that's why I asked earlier in the video, if there was one promising young player that you could bring to this World Cup to give experience, just that, he wouldn't play, who would it be? Mathis Albert, Cavan Sullivan, who would it be? Let me know in the comment section down below. Oh, and obviously don't forget to drop a like in this video. I like asking that because a lot of you don't do it, so just do it right now. Okay, now it's time to talk about the case against his inclusion. And as the professional hater that I am, for this section, I'm going to take over myself. Now listen, I'm not 100% against his inclusion, and I'm going to talk about that at the very end of this video. But for this section, I have to actually elaborate all of the points that go against his inclusion. So it'll look like I'm hating, but it doesn't mean it's my opinion. It's just me trying to play a case against it. Capiche? Okay, first and foremost, Xavier Gozo has not been with this group at all. Mauricio Pochettino has never called him up. So to call up a last-minute U20 player that you've never brought in, and he's never really had an incredible full season in MLS, he's definitely unproven. The only case that it makes 100% sense to do so is if you have a generational talent. Like, for example, Brazil had Neymar in 2010, and they didn't bring him. That turned out to be a mistake by Dunga because Neymar became a generational player. Or if you have a 17, 18-year-old Mbappe, and he just broke through with Monaco at the time, then you bring him to the World Cup if he's 18. Pele in 1958, like players like that, or I think Henry in 1998, players like that, you bring. So my question to you is this: is Xavier Gozo a generational talent? Very likely not. Is he a high ceiling talent? Yes. But then we have to also ask ourselves, the U.S. men's national team doesn't really have generational talents, right? So maybe for our standards, he might be. But I don't know. And I think the fact that he hasn't really had a full standout season in MLS yet, and he's never been with this group, that weighs against his inclusion. The other point that I want to make is that it kind of goes with what I just said, right? He hasn't really been tested at the highest level. He hasn't played in top 5 European leagues. He hasn't really played for the national team in tough competitions outside of a U20 World Cup, which, by the way, he did struggle in that U20 World Cup, which was like 5 to 7 months ago. He wasn't terrible, and at times he was played out of position, but he wasn't great in the U20 World Cup. My point here is Xavier Gozo has not been tested at the highest level. He has not. So you want to test him in the World Cup, where the pressure is high, the intensity is insane, and there's a lot at stake? You know what I mean? If he was a generational talent, sure, you risk it. But I have to ask you again, he has not been tested at the highest level. And then you're going to just throw him out there
in the World Cup?
Another case that plays against him, in my opinion, is the system that has been working or was working under Mauricio Pochettino, when we play a 3-4-2-1 with double 10s and no true wingers. So if you don't have true wingers, that's already Xavier Gozo's position going away. Now, he can play as a wingback. We've seen him play as a wingback at times with RSL, and that could be a case for him. But the problem is, he is actually not better than the players we have on the wing going forward. I don't think he's better on the right wingback position than Dest attacking, and honestly, possibly even defending. He's not better attacking right now than Tim Weah. He's not better right now defending than Tim Weah, right? Is he even better than Alex Freeman right now? Perhaps not. Maybe attacking, right? And then on the left, he's not going to play over A-Rob. And is he better and as unpredictable even as Arvston? Would I prefer him over Arvston? Maybe. I'm not really comfortable with either one playing as a left wing back in the World Cup. But you get the point, right? The system right there doesn't really suit him right now. Last but not least, the final case against him. Xavier Gozo is a player for the 2030 cycle. Unfortunately, he's not one for the 2026 cycle. I would honestly consider bringing him in right after the World Cup, right? And try to build something for 2030. But right now, unless you want to bring him just to give him the experience, there's a lot against it. And I know Marcus Shai mentioned bringing him over Brendan Aronson. I firmly disagree with that. I think Brendan Aronson, there are specific cases also where Brendan Aronson is very useful, and Brendan Aronson is actually tested in the Premier League. Is he a standout in the Premier League? No, but he's not a Premier League scrub, right? Brendan Aronson. He's not a bad player in the Premier League. So I wouldn't bring him over Brendan Aronson. But now let's just dive into the final section of the video. Would I bring Xavier Gozo? Yes or no? Will Pochettino bring Xavier Gozo? Okay, so Pochettino first. Will he bring Xavier Gozo to the World Cup? The answer to that is no. I just don't see it happening. There's like a 99.9% chance that he will not bring Xavier Gozo to the World Cup. There's no evidence that he'll call up this player. Okay, that's not my opinion. It's a fact, right? But what I'm saying is, obviously, there is a slight percentage. We could have an injury crisis, and then all of a sudden, he's an option. But right now, there is zero evidence or indication that Pochettino would bring Xavier Gozo to the World Cup. And the other question is, would I bring Xavier Gozo to the World Cup? If it was to bring him over Sebastian Berhalter or Roldan, for example, the answer to that is yes. But that's not the question, right? Because I don't think Berhalter or Roldan should be there anyway. If it was over them, sure. But if the question is, would you bring one U20 prospect to just gain experience, right? Just be there with the roster. If that was the question, I would say yes, but not to Xavier Gozo. I do not think Xavier Gozo will contribute on the field this World Cup. So in that case, he can only fall under the category of U20 players that are going just for the experience. And if that is the case, which I don't think he'll contribute on the field this World Cup, I just don't think it'll happen if he played, I would bring the highest ceiling prospect that we have, which is not him. I think it's Mathis Albert. The most talented prospect that I've seen in our U20, U17 level so far right now is Mathis Albert. It's also not Cavan Sullivan. So if I were to bring a player like that, it would be Mathis Albert. And I'm going to say this once again. If we bring Noah Kai Banks, he's not an undeserving call-up, and Noah Kai Banks can actually contribute for us on the field. This guy is starting for a mid-table Bundesliga side while he is a U20 player, and he's starting for them, okay? So Noah Kai Banks would be able to help us on the field. Xavier Gozo, in my opinion, would not. So if that was the case, I would just rather bring Mathis Albert for the experience. But again, I do not think Gozo will be in the World Cup. I do not think Mathis Albert will be in the World Cup. And I do not think Noah Kai Banks will be in the World Cup for the US as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hopefully this was a fun video for you. A nice little brain exercise, a nice little talk. And just to close things here, I have a lot of respect for Herc, a lot of respect for Marcus Chai. I don't agree with everything that they said there, but their takes on Xavier Gozo are not crazy. Thank you for watching, everyone, and have a great day.